basis. It was the latest ruling against Trump's revised travel ban. On Wednesday, a judge in Hawaii rejected the ban. Government lawyers argued that the ban was substantially revised from an earlier version signed in January that was later blocked by a federal judge in Washington state. They said the ban was ordered in the interest of national security to protect the U.S. from radical Islamic terrorism. The Maryland plaintiffs also argued the ban illegally reduces the number of refugees authorized to enter the U.S. this year. Chuang granted a preliminary injunction prohibiting the enforcement of the travel ban nationwide pending further orders from the court. He declined to stay the ruling should an emergency appeal be filed. The White House did not immediately respond to the Maryland ruling. The Wednesday ruling came from U.S. District Judge Derek Watson in Honolulu, who rejected the government's claims that the travel ban is about national security, not discrimination. Watson also said Hawaii would suffer financially if the executive order constricted the flow of students and tourists into the state, and that Hawaii was likely to succeed on a claim that the ban violates First Amendment protections against religious discrimination. Watson criticized what he called the illogic of the government's arguments and cited significant and unrebutted evidence of religious animus behind the travel ban. He also noted that while courts should not examine the veiled psyche and secret motives of government decision-makers, the remarkable facts at issue here require no such impermissible inquiry. For instance, there is nothing veiled about this press release. Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States, Watson wrote, referring to a statement Trump issued as a candidate. Trump called the ruling an example of unprecedented judicial overreach and said his administration would appeal it to the U.S. Supreme Court. He also called his new travel ban a watered-down version of the first one, which he said he wished he could implement. "We're going to win. We're going to keep our citizens safe," the president said at a rally in Nashville. "The danger is clear. The law is clear. The need for my executive order is clear. If the administration seeks an emergency stay of Watson's decision at the Ninth Circuit, the matter would be heard by different judges from the three who ruled on the case last month. That's because the panel of judges assigned to such cases rotates every month," said court spokesman David Madden. The Ninth Circuit on Wednesday declined to reconsider the 3-0 decision not to reinstate the original ban. In a dissent, 5 judges said they considered that decision incorrect and wanted it vacated. Whatever we, as individuals, may feel about the president or the executive order, the president's decision was well within the powers of the presidency, Judge J. Bybee wrote for the 5. Watson issued his ruling less than 2 hours after hearing Hawaii's request for a temporary restraining order to stop the ban from being put into practice. The hearing was one of 3 held Wednesday in federal courts around the country. U.S. District Judge James Robart in Seattle, who blocked the initial travel ban last month, did not immediately rule on a request from an immigrant rights group to block the revised version. In all, more than half a dozen states are trying to stop the ban. A case brought by Washington state argues that the new order harms residents, universities and businesses, especially tech companies such as Washington state-based Microsoft and Amazon, which rely on foreign workers. California, Maryland, Massachusetts, New York and Oregon have joined the claim. Trump's initial travel ban, issued on a Friday in late January, brought chaos and protests to airports around the country as travelers.
I think Trump administration officials feel like they still have to do something, that if they didn't do anything and just let the courts bog down that first order indefinitely, it would be perceived as a campaign promise that was not fulfilled. But the fact that they're doing it on a much quieter level here, that Donald Trump didn't even do a public signing, that he put his administration officials to answer questions that happen on Monday and not at the end of the day on a Friday, they're being much more careful, but they want to have at least something that they can claim as an accomplishment on the immigration issue.
And given how busy the president's been on social media over the past few weeks, Anthony, anything around this again in terms of his activity and what he's saying, is he being unusually quiet?
After Saturday morning's outburst on Barack Obama and wiretapping, he has been relatively quiet, just a few tweets on Sunday morning. But yes, he's backed down a lot. So I think he may let this order speak for itself. He was very active in defending that first order, talking about how important it was that it happened immediately right away, because otherwise people would sneak into the country. Now this one has a 10-day delay, so it's a difference. I don't think he wants people, putting up his new tweets defending it versus his old tweets and nitpicking the differences. We'll see if that lasts, however. If there's a fair amount of blowback and criticism, I wouldn't be surprised if he takes to Twitter and is a little more aggressive.
Just to pick up on one thing again, Anthony, if I may, because lots of people obviously still interested in the events of the weekend and the way that the Trump attack on Barack Obama played out. How do you assess that today, and what's been the kind of considered view on that a few days later?
Well, there's still a lot of concern, particularly in Congress, about it. Obviously, his tweets changed the dynamic of the debate in this country and the topics of conversation to much more about these unfounded, at least at the moment, allegations about the previous administration. I know Republicans in Congress had planned on this being a week where they would focus on health care reform and Obamacare repeal. Now, on Monday morning, they're having to defend their president or explain their president or back away from their president in many cases. It's changing the message, it's undermining the message. So I think that the travel order is going to change the subject a little bit, but I don't think it's going to wholly change the conversation away from Donald Trump's Saturday morning tweets.
All right, Anthony, good to talk to you again. Thanks very much for the latest there in Washington. Anthony Zurcher, my colleague there in Washington. Now, let's have a look at the headlines at 17 minutes past 5 here on BBC News. Trade unions calling on the government to fight for British jobs at Vauxhall after the car manufacturer was bought by the French owners of Peugeot and Citroën. President Trump has signed a new ban on travellers from 6 mainly Muslim countries after the US courts blocked his original order. In the UK, 13 potential terror attacks have been prevented in almost 4 years. That's according to counter-terror police. The public is urged to be vigilant.
In sport, Manchester United's Zlatan Ibrahimovic and Bournemouth's Tyrone Mings have been charged by the FA with violent conduct. Mings appeared to stamp on the head of the United forward before the striker caught the defender with an elbow to the face moments later. Arsene Wenger has denied reports Alexis Sanchez was involved in a training ground row in the lead-up to Saturday's defeat to Liverpool as speculation over the player's future grows. And after facing criticism over its makeup, the FA table a series of proposals to improve diversity. They include reserving 3 places on the FA board for female members only. I'll be back with more on all of those stories and a full update at around past.
Now, the latest developments in the French presidential election. The former Prime Minister, Alain Juppé, has announced today that he will not be a candidate in next month's presidential election. There was growing speculation that he was preparing to step in to replace François Fillon, the current centre-right candidate, who's been under massive pressure in recent weeks because of allegations of wrong use of public money and corruption in effect. Joining me now from Paris to talk through the latest developments is Pierre Aski, former deputy editor of the newspaper Libération and now CEO of the independent news website Rue 89. Pierre, thanks very much for coming in. I'm just wondering, what should people make of the current state of this race, given that Monsieur Fillon is still there, despite all the kind of forecasts, if you like, that by today he would have been gone?
Mr. Fillon has managed candidacy in an amazing. Yesterday, he had a make-or-break event. He organized a big rally in Paris, and the rally was big enough to make him feel that he could continue, big enough to convince people that the real problem today is that there is still nothing convincing in the right-wing party that has nominated him that he can win. And so there are still a lot of discussions after Mr. Juppé has decided not to run to see how to deal with it. The problem is that Mr. Fillon doesn't want to leave. He says, me out. That's what he said on TV last night. So it's a real deadlock for the right.
It certainly is, and I'm just wondering, when we look at the kind of people involved, three big figures, Mr. Fillon, I mentioned Mr. Juppé, and of course Mr. Sarkozy, who's had some things to say as well. What do you make of his role in this?
Godfather, you know, though he lost heavily in the primaries, he lost in the first round of. He's still someone who carries a lot of weight. He has a lot of followers in the leadership of the party, and obviously the fact that he was the former president gives him some extra weight. So at the moment, there is really a key role for him in trying to keep the unity of the party. The three very radically different factions in the party, and the unity of the right is really in danger. And you could hear this morning how deep the resentment and the bitterness is within the Republican Party.
Pierre Aski, good to talk to you, and thank you so much for coming in today. Pierre Aski there talking to us from Paris. Little glitch on the sound, for which we apologise, but we certainly got the full message that Pierre was giving to us there on the latest stage of the presidential campaign in France. It is now 21 minutes past 5. Police say that 13 potential terror attacks have been averted in the past 4 years in the UK. The UK's most senior counter-terrorism police officer has also revealed that more than 500 investigations are being carried out at any one time. He disclosed the figures as he launched an appeal that aims to get members of the public to report any suspicious behaviour that they might see. Our Home Affairs correspondent Daniel Sanford reports now.
Checking on a huge bag of fertiliser he planned to use for an Al-Qaeda bombing campaign against nightclubs and shopping centres. This was Omar Khayyam in 2004, unaware that he was being watched by police. A woman working at the storage warehouse had tipped detectives off, potentially saving hundreds of lives.
If you have a concern about something you've seen or heard that could identify a terrorist threat, report it.
A new police campaign reminds the public of the important role they have in fighting terror.
It could be anything that strikes you as unusual.
Detectives say that in 1/3 of the most high-risk recent investigations, information from the public has helped. In the background are the devastating attacks in mainland Europe, the trucks driven into crowds in Berlin and Nice. The mass shootings combined with suicide bombs in Paris and Brussels. All so-called Islamic State or Daesh attacks, inspired or even controlled from a distance.
You have to go outside.
Okay. We see increasing use of encrypted communications which can instantaneously and dynamically link terrorists across the world. That brings about a greater danger for us in our communities, that somebody in our community can be influenced by somebody working in a terrorist stronghold on the other side of the world.
Counter-terrorist police...
Peace, no justice, no peace, no justice, no peace, no justice, no peace, no, no. Let them go, 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 let them go. Stay high, stay clear, refugees are welcome here. 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 Set them free!